Today we look at the top apartment markets for rent growth in 2015, always one of our most popular features. Welcome to Apartment Market Dynamics from MPF Research. I'm Jay Parsons and I'm back with Greg Willett. And Greg, every quarter we do these videos on the rent growth leaders, and it's beginning to feel like we're Bill Murray from Groundhog Day because we keep talking about the same places again and again and again, and I have a feeling we're going to do that again today. Last time Portland was number one, followed by a bunch of West Coast markets. Is it any different this time?
Shockingly, currently number one, Portland, followed by a bunch of other West Coast markets. Although we will get some new blood in this as we work our way down the list.
Oh, good. So stay tuned for that.
So let's jump to right at the top. We've got Portland at 12.7% annual effective growth for new resident leases. Next up, Oakland and Sacramento. They're both just a hair over the 9% mark. And then Seattle, Tacoma, just under 9%. And then three more West region markets that come in with rent growth between 7 and 8%. And those are San Diego, Las Vegas, and the Denver-Boulder area.
So after that top batch of markets all in the west region of the country, we do get some regional diversity in the next group and still with some big rent growth. We're seeing rent growth in the upper 6% range, and I'll need a deep breath here. West Palm Beach, Atlanta, Fort Worth, Tampa Bay, Fort Lauderdale, Phoenix, San Jose, and Orlando.
All right, so that list, I see two interesting stories there, and I've got questions for you.
Let's roll.
All right, so number one, Florida. We've occasionally on this leaderboard seen a Florida market will show up for a quarter or two, usually West Palm Beach. But we had four big Florida markets there. If we went to the smaller Florida markets, we would have similar or even stronger results in the Fort Myers, Naples area, in the Treasure Coast area, and in Bradenton, Sarasota as well. So what's the deal with Florida? Is it meaningfully better than it has been?
Yeah, obviously Florida's been high on everybody's radar given what happened in the recession. But the story today is pretty good across the state of Florida. We're seeing very solid job growth. Supply is elevated, but still very manageable compared to some other parts of the country. And so really, though, the story isn't that much different from where it was a few quarters ago. But the big difference is prior to Q4, Florida markets kept missing the cutoff mark for the top 10 or so markets we discuss in these videos. And now we're starting to see them climb just a little bit higher to the nation's top-tier performers. And one of the reasons they make the list in Q4 is partly because obviously you don't have the Q4 seasonality issues, the weather issues in Florida that you see in most of the rest of the country.
Okay, topic number two now. The Bay Area markets and Denver. Still up there at the top. National number or annual numbers look great, but these markets actually didn't do especially well during fourth quarter specifically. Yep. And there were a lot of properties in these markets where you actually had some rent cuts during the last few months of the year. So are we at an inflection point in these markets that have been right at the leaderboard height throughout this cycle?
That's a great question and a much harder question. I think the short answer is we don't know yet. As you said, we're always looking for that inflection point, particularly in the Bay Area and in Denver, which have been so hot for so long. But when we look for an inflection point, we also need to be careful because you don't ever want to look into one quarter's performances too much. And so it's one that we're definitely watching very, very closely in Q1 to see what actually happens there. But as we talk to some clients, try to figure out what is happening in those markets, we get a lot of different answers. But we are hearing of some significant rent cuts in some cases on a quarter-over-quarter basis in Q4. So again, let's see how that plays out going forward, because the opinions at this point are all over the map.
I've heard some other folks talk about this, and they tend to focus in on that new supply story, but I don't think it is the new supply.
Yeah,
what are you seeing?
That's a great point. I mean, new supply is obviously at high numbers in both Denver and in the Bay Area, really, and mostly on in the San Jose and San Francisco side. But when you look at the numbers, what's really interesting is that the pullback wasn't really in that top tier of the market. It was actually in that Class B space, and so that's something that we're going to have to really watch going forward. Because what it could mean potentially is that we've hit that affordability ceiling. We're at risk of hitting the affordability ceiling in those spots. thoughts. But again, let's see what happens these next few months. But that's certainly something we're going to have to watch.
And these markets have really pushed rents much stronger than elsewhere across the country, right?
Absolutely. So let's give you some perspective here on that point. Rent growth in the Bay Area and in Denver has doubled the pace seen for the rest of the country during this cycle. Pricing has jumped 41 to 50%. I mean, 41 to 50% in those four metros, with the most aggressive rent increases compared to the U.S. average of 22.5%. San Jose has been the most extreme, 50.1%. Oakland and San Francisco right around 45, 46%. And then Denver, Boulder, about 41%. So some really big numbers.
So those Bay Area and Denver metros, I mean, certainly ones to watch to see what happens in 2016, and we will certainly be doing that. That wraps up the rent growth leaderboard for this past quarter. He's Jay Parsons. I'm Greg Willett. Thanks for watching Apartment Market Dynamics from NPF Research.
Want more? Go deeper with NPF Research's apartment market reports. From a national level, down to individual metros, to specific neighborhoods, NPF Research has been providing unparalleled apartment market intelligence to the multifamily industry for almost 5 decades. Learn more by contacting us at 877-284-4938 or visit www.npfresearch.com and click on Market Reports.